want to talk about something that's on my mind as I'm sitting here. Um, how you look at your life in hindsight and you see some of the things you've accomplished, and you realize that you have definitely accomplished something more so than you give yourself credit for. Or maybe you meet somebody and or you meet people are telling you, wow, you've done this and you've done that, and you're like, oh, I guess I have. See, for many years, since I was in elementary school, I never saw myself as smart. I pretty much saw myself as pretty much unremarkable in many ways. So I grew up in West Africa, Nigeria, and the time I grew up, which is very different from now, okay, but the time I grew up there was more patriarchy than there is today, especially in my states. And I remember like hearing stories about ways women were treated that didn't give me a very good sense of self. Because when you're a child and you're in an environment where there are stories that are harsh to women, you could, even without being conscious of it, take in those sentiments as belittling to yourself. Although as a child you're not processing it like that, it does filter as one of the foundational blocks in your upbringing. I also came from a home where, in elementary school and secondary school, I'm going to start about elementary school first. I wasn't very, as I said, smart. I didn't see myself. I was very shy. I was always outside looking in. This was how I saw myself. Now, people that were with me then, maybe they might not see me that way, but this is the way I saw myself. And I also had a very intelligent brother. My brother, in those days, after every school semester, they would put the top students for that grade on the platform, and every student would want to be there. They would celebrate them, and every student that is left on the ground would be looking. That's something to aim for. So my brother was always the one up there. There was always conversations in the house because he was so smart that he was going to be a doctor or be this and that. And I was nothing. I mean, sometimes they would have students, performing in theater productions, and they would pick the remarkable students, right? And I wasn't one of those that had a voice or knew herself. Or I felt so awkward in my skin. Also, we used to have a lot of. It's not uncommon to have religious groups, like coming to pray for your house and declare certain things over your house, and they would always come and they would talk about my brother and how he's going to accomplish and be remarkable and all that. And there was nothing for me. So all that was one more building block on my life. When I got to high school, I was in a boarding house. In the first years of my schooling, the principal would have this system. It's similar to a primary school, where she would put the top 10 students in each year on the platform, and and she would say wonderful things about them. And one time I was so determined to be one of those students up there. So what I did was I worked very hard that semester. I put in everything, the best way I could. And my grade for that semester was enough for me to be on the stage, because you could see if you were, before they even announced it. So I was really looking forward to that. It happened outside. They called everyone in the school to the field. They had this platform, and they started calling the names. This was my second year in high school. Secondary school is what we call in Nigeria. And I was excited. I was finally at work so hard. Now, that position was shared with one other girl. So it was the 10th position. So there were 10 for each year, 10 students, and I was 10th in that year. But I didn't know that there was another girl who usually is always on there that was also in that 10th position with me. I didn't know that. So I was looking forward to being up there, and they called that 10th position and they picked her. And as a child, and I was about 10 then, something in me just died. I said, wow, what's the point? What's the point? I remember the way I processed it as a 10-year-old. And from that moment, I don't think I really gave, I didn't even know how to give anymore. Best, whatever that looked like. So for many years, I struggled with feeling that I just don't have it. I just don't have it. I'm not. And of course, that affects your esteem. I used to think I wasn't smart till I came back here. And come back here, I was born here. I have my maternal side is from here, but my paternal side is from there. So I came back, and I still had that underlining thought that I'm just not intelligent or smart enough or enough. Then in college, my undergrad, I struggled a little bit. I did come out, pretty decent, but I struggled a lot. And part of that was just all those building blocks from my past didn't really inspire me to believe that I could do more or how to do more. So I kept on it. But, I'm a person of faith. I believe in Christ. And one thing that's good about having that as a foundation is he would gradually start to correct things that are false beliefs. So it wasn't immediate, but through a process of time, I began to, things happened that was slowly chipping away on those building blocks that had come through my past. And I'll give some examples. I remember when I lived in Paris for a while. And I remember I went out with some friends and we were talking about something to do with the economy or some world politics and stuff like that. And there was a lady there that was from Harvard, and they were very quite accomplished females. We're all females. And we were sharing our different opinions on different issues, and I was contributing. And I was surprised that I had so many valid contributions. See, I read a lot. I used to read a lot. So, and watch and listen to a lot of commentary and read a lot. But to me, because I saw myself as not enough, I didn't see those things as anything. I just kept on reading. I would read and read and read, and I didn't know I was developing myself. I didn't consciously think of it. So I was surprised when I finished I gave my own contribution to the topic, and she was really listening, and she was really, yes, that's true. And I left there thinking, wait a minute, did I just have a on-par conversation with someone that I believe, because don't forget how I saw myself, that she was way smarter than me, and it made sense. So that was like a little bit of a chip on that block, that building block of insecurity or lack of feeling enough, that I didn't recognize. It was just something that padded into my life. I came back and I decided to go to grad school. Okay, now through this time, I of course was keeping up my faith. I was living my life. I had done different things, short films. I had written, and I would see little things like I could write a script, then first draft easily 2 weeks, and it's a remark. It would be a good first draft. I even got paid to do some of these things. And so those little moments, I'm thinking, well, that's people would say, wow, how are you doing this? And I'm like, okay, I don't know. It wasn't because I didn't see myself as sharp or remarkable. These things were not things that I thought were unusual. I just did them. And I had a time when also I designed some fashion bags, and I had a lot of people saying things about it. It was how did you do it? This is beautiful. But I didn't see it. Although I will say that I wasn't like downtrodden, like, oh my God, I can't see it. I would appreciate it, and that would get stored in my soul as a positive, a chip on that block of not enough, right? I had some losses, right? Things I thought were going to be successful that weren't, that really could have added so much more to what I felt. But in the process of living, I'm also growing in my faith. And one thing about growing in my faith, so it's in Christianity, is you begin to see yourself as God sees you. And one of the ways He's not going to see you as not enough, He's not going to see you as not intelligent, because He starts saying things like, you have the mind of Christ, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Those are things you're hearing as you're walking your Christian journey. So if you're hearing these things and you're taking them in, there are seeds that are continually planted. So I cannot say I walked through the world with a sense of, with my head down. I just never did that. But the core of me, the deep core of me, was not completely sure was enough. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So now all this is happening through time. All this happening through time. There was no conscious, now I gotta say I'm enough. What I could, I didn't say no thought went into it, but it wasn't something that I went for a therapy session or, these are just as I lived life. Those positives would make me think, wow, okay, I didn't know I could do that. So when I now went to do my grad school, went to grad school, my graduate education, I was determined to really now, I was older, of course, I'm going to focus and really see, if I'm really that unable, and that would mean graduating with honors. So I put my best in and I came out with I think I got almost a 3.7, or it was a quite good grade from that GPA. And I've said, wow, this is something, right? So, but it did come to a point when I being in my faith, I had to address my inner thoughts. And one of the things that came to me in my mind was, are you believing a lie, and should you continue to believe a lie? Why would you walk around ever thinking you're not smart? Why would you ever walk around ever thinking you're not enough? Is this really what God wants you to believe and see? This is how He really wants you to see yourself. And so I told myself, okay, I'm never going to allow this to take root. And okay, let me go back. There was a moment I did think about that actively. Okay, I won't let this take root. And there's something else I began to notice. I remember when I was making a short film with a friend. I was assisting her. It wasn't my short film. And her husband is a neurosurgeon, and he came on site, onto the set, and he was going to help her, and he was so frustrated. Now, this is a guy that is a neurosurgeon, definitely highly accomplished, but it didn't all this made sense, all this creative stuff. And I observed. So I remember thinking, wait a minute, this filmmaking thing is so complicated. The creative, I don't think it was a technical, because I think you can always learn the technical. You can always learn how to edit and maybe know how to use a camera. But to tell a story, that requires a certain part of your brain. And he just didn't have that, right? So, hold a minute, someone's calling, let me take that off. So I now began to understand that everybody has an ability. And many times when you think you're not smart enough, it's because you're not, I wouldn't use the word smart. Your interest is not in a particular place, and you're not gifted for that place. And if you continue walking in that, of course, you're going to feel unintelligent. So, I now go back to high school. So one of the things that that fed into that I'm not smart enough was I was studying science. I'm not even a science inclined. I'm art inclined. But I was studying science because in Nigeria, then to become successful, what was the narrative in the culture was a lawyer, doctor, engineer, and pharmacist, right? So those are the things that the society was pushing as a way to make it. Nobody was talking about art. I don't care if you could draw like, the great who are the Van Gogh. It doesn't matter. It just not was not appreciated. So when you're steeped into something that you're not good at, one, you're not interested in it, or maybe your mind does not know how to think through it. All that just didn't fit. I was in science for all my life from high school. I mean, I was just in science, and I would be admiring those people that are in art, but I didn't have the boldness or the support to go into art until I came here to the United States, and I realized, like I said, coming now, fast forwarding to that time in the field when I saw this neurosurgeon, and I realized, wait a minute, this is a lie I have. I'm not smart, or I'm not enough. Maybe I've allowed myself to walk on a path that is not mine. And when you walk on a path that is not yours, you're betraying yourself, your true self. And in betraying your true self, your soul knows it. So even today, there are many people that are doing things that is not really them, as a response to not feeling, to an emptiness in there, a betrayal of self, right? And they are hiding it by falling into, the way they dress and trying to keep up with everybody and showing everything on social media and always the perfection, but they're not really true to themselves. And when you look deep in them, they don't feel enough because they're in a place that they're not supposed to be in. So as I grew up and I realized my gifting, and I allowed myself freely walk in that, I began to understand that I am intelligent. I began to understand that I am enough. I began to understand that all those were lies. And also just to process my background, because I know a lot of times people feel this way because of their background or maybe a family issues. I also grew to understand that my response to people at some point has to change as an adult. So if people didn't believe in me at that time as a child, or that was my perception, that does not make it true. That makes it their problem. So, and I'm always going to include my faith in my conversations because that's just who I am. Being with the Lord, and you become of sounder mind progressively, of sounder identity progressively, you begin to look back at things and see and place them where they need to be, compartmentalize them where they need to be. So if somebody decides in a culture like that to see his power and position as a way to bring down a female or to look down a female, that's their problem. I don't need to take that on myself. So those are things I had to walk through. I had to learn. And right now I'm responsible for how I see myself today, how I'm growing today. And I can honestly say that I got to this point where I'm like, I'm enough. And I'm not going to belittle the fact that if you have many losses in your life, if you've tried many things and they don't work, you've not had many wins, you can begin to think that you're not enough. You can begin, because your confidence goes down. And what I can say about those things are, pause and ask yourself, those things I did that were failures, was I really equipped enough to do it? Did I really learn all I could to do it? What really was, if I take myself out of the picture, what really made those things fail? Let me give you an example. For let's say, you decide to offer a product to the market. I'm talking about business now, okay? And you design this product, you put it out there, you put everything into it, and it didn't sell, for example. Maybe it wasn't a great product. Maybe it was the wrong timing. Maybe people didn't want that product. Maybe you need to refine the product, right? It doesn't always have to be because of you. Maybe you had the wrong partnership, the wrong partner. Maybe it wasn't just you. So sometimes we're in the midst of our feelings, we're in our feelings of, I don't feel enough. We really can exaggerate things. For example, in my case, I had no business being in science. It wasn't going to be successful, no matter how I put it, right? And that went all the way to high school. If I was probably because in high school we would have A, B, C, D class settings. A was for the smart kids, see, and those things fit into you, right? Those are the smart kids, those doing science. B were for the art, and then I think B was for the art and science. You kind of mixing up in there, and then C was for the art, and then you had this class that was like, throw the kids in there that didn't that didn't know what they were doing, and you're not sure they were going to make it in life, right? So these are little things that telling a kid that if you're not in A, you're not enough. You're not quite there. So what would everybody want to do? Well, I won't say everybody. Let me put myself, and everybody who's listening can put themselves in what they are, where they are. But I wanted to be an A, because I'm already coming in thinking that's where I need to be of value to excel. But I had no business being there. So that was a recipe for disaster right there, right? And we do that as adults. We go into careers that we're not really pleased, that we're not really happy with. We betray ourselves by denying ourselves what could bring us joy, studying the right courses, being in a career that would have made us happy, maybe as not as rich, but happy. Being with somebody that we know was not a good fit, or is not a good fit, but we're there. Being with different people, maybe they have ended, the relationship has ended, that we're not supposed to be there in the first place, and they ended up adding to our bucket or to the foundational brick of telling us we're nothing. You're not supposed to have been there in the first place, so you're in it now, and that person has left you with seeds of increasing devaluation, right? So you put when you're feeling so down about yourself, there are many times when I would encourage you to pause and quiet the noise and the voices around, and really try to break through if what you've believed about yourself is a lie. And remember the things that you've done that people have applauded you at. Most of the time that may be where you're really strong at, where you should have walked in and where you can continue to walk in. But beyond everything, intrinsically, I truly believe that everybody has a place in this world. Everybody was designed by God with a place in this world. Now, we do live in a society where those places have to seemingly have value when they're loudest. But there are some people that are doing quiet, silent things, and it's great enough. It's great enough being a great mother, being a great father, being a great provider, being there, raising a set of kids that are adding value to this society. It's good enough being someone who is a great friend. You're single, but you're a great friend. You leave people feeling better than when they first came. People leave you feeling better than when they first came to you. There is value in being excellent at the work that you do. That talent and craft that you're great at, quilting, woodwork, knitting, crocheting, whatever you do, you're good at it. And painting, and that's enough. So I was thinking about, I guess I'm just sharing thoughts, and I'd like to hear what you think. Subscribe to the page. I'm just going to be sharing thoughts like this, and I want to also hear your thoughts, because I believe in us kind of helping each other through life. But if you've dealt with low self-esteem, how did you come out of it? If you've dealt with lies, self-sabotaging lies, how did you deal with it? I hope I've sort of shared my journey without rambling all over the place, but mine was through the process of time as I observed reactions and where I excelled, and I was honest with myself, coupled with my faith, a strong foundation, knowing what God thinks about me. So adding all that into this bowl and mixing it all together came out someone that is now seeing that she's enough. And it's funny because once you now see that you're enough, you begin to make so much progress, far more than people expect, or that even you expect. Forget people, that you expect, because now you even actually believe it. Now, I truly believe if I want to put my mind to something I enjoy, whoever is excelling in that thing, as long as they don't have two heads, I can do it. I believe it. Not everything, because I don't want to do everything. I don't want to be a medical doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a pharmacist. So I'm not going to go and excel there. But if I do excel, I'm in the real estate investment space or industry. If I want to excel in real estate, I will. If I want to get a certain number, financial number, I will. Because I truly now believe that I can have what it takes. I'm in the right place. So that's what I wanted to share. And I hope that we can talk about other things going forward. So subscribe and hopefully be part of my page. Thank you.